I think at this point we all know the drill. A brand new space game announced, it promises the stars. The ability to do everything, the ability to go everywhere. Others, meanwhile, promise an endless list of dream features. Some deliver on that, others just, they tease it as a distant dream. But then you get something like Jump Space, formerly known as Jump Ship. And it kind of shakes things up in a way that's kind of got me thinking that just might redefine what we expect from these cooperative adventures. And look, this one's been quite a while in the making. It's been through a few name changes as well, finally settling on the Jump Space, and I actually think this one's going to be a really good game. It's set for launch on the 19th of September into early access, and it's quite possibly one of the most wishlist space games ever. Over 1 million wishlists for people currently interested in this, so very, very likely there's going to be a huge number of players for this. Yeah, that's fortunate because this is a co-op PvE shooter. So if I wanted to give you a very brief overview of what the game is up front, just in a couple of sentences, think of a mashup between a Sea of Thieves crewing the ship's chaos and Left 4 Dead's horde battling attention. There's a kind of a mix there, and there's also a dash of FTL in here as well. And I have seen a few people compare it to a Void Crew, although I think this is quite a different game in many regards. So you're here as the crew of a spaceship in a hostile universe, and you transition seamlessly from manning turrets and piloting through asteroid fields and leaping to zero-G spacewalks, storming enemy vessels on foot, or even running around your own ship and putting out fires. There's no loading screens between all of this to break the flow. It's just pure action that encourages real communication without actually forcing anything down your throat, and you're not taking on a predefined roles here. What's actually going on is that you adopt the role that you feel suits you yourself. So whether you want to be the pilot, whether you want to be the forerunner going out and kind of scoping out enemy territory, whether you want to man the guns or repair the ships, you can do any of these roles as and when it suits you, or seamlessly switch between them. And that's the thing, in my experience, Jump Space is all about the moment-to-moment gameplay. It's somewhat simplistic in that sense, but simplistic in a very good way, a very appealing way. You fly missions across a stitched-together galaxy map, respond to dynamic problems aboard your ship, then disembark, sometimes literally flinging yourself out of space, EVA-like, into danger. The interesting part here is how fluidly these elements lock together. In one encounter, you might thread a battered corvette through a mine-laced debris field, drift to a halt with the fires blooming in the hull, and whilst another person goes out to extinguish those fires, and then jetpack across the gap to an enemy hull to sabotage its core, only to sprint back inside in time to route power to the shields in your own ship to get out of there fast and quickly. And you can perhaps start to see why this works so well with a distinct lack of classes, instead people choosing their roles on a fly. To all intents and purposes, this is improvisational co-op, and it does work very well. In my playthrough with the developers, I really did enjoy my time with it, and other people by now would have played the demo that was out on the recent Steam Next Fest. Largely then, people know what to expect from this game. There shouldn't be too much in the way of surprises, and I suspect that's one of the reasons that there's so much anticipation and excitement for this title. So yeah, all of it does pack up rather nicely inside the launch package, and this one is unusually clear for an indie title, specifically one that's in early access. So it begins with 9 mission types. These are spread across 50 sectors, maybe a few more, 4 unlockable galaxy regions and 2 ships to master. Under the hood there's the loadout layer, which includes 26 ship components to swap and tune as you please, plus a slate of weapons and a range of different enemy archetypes that can be found both on ship as well as ships and on ground as well. So this is quite a big slice. It's a pretty deep foundation that's meant to be replayed. This isn't just a single playthrough thing, this is an ongoing game where you're going to want to keep going back into and keep replaying those missions and those activities. And anyone who has played the demo will know that the developers here have pushed quite hard to make this a refined experience, and it does seem to work very much that way. Now in terms of platforms and timing, these are just straightforward as well. On PC it's going to Steam Early Access, on console it will be in the Xbox Game Preview. Unfortunately though, there's no PlayStation version just yet. In terms of hardware on PC, the requirements are not too high, despite the game looking rather nice. For minimum system requirements, we're looking at an AMD Ryzen 5 2600 paired with a GeForce GTX 1070 or better. This should get you around about 30 frames per second at 1080p. If you want to push this up to the recommended spec, then we've got a Ryzen 7 5800X with a RTX 3060 Ti or better, and this should get you 60 frames a second at 1080p. And these are the stats according to the Steam page. Now, I touched on missions earlier. I've given you a bit of overview on the gameplay. I want to jump in a little bit deeper here. Basically, in Jump Space, a mission begins with players crewing their ship and preparing for objectives. This takes place at the HQ, which is a surface base. The mission itself then unfolds across handcrafted scenarios with randomized elements. In one of them I tried out, there was a meteor shower occurring right in the middle of the mission, and we kind of had to get out of the area pretty quick. Now, during the mission, players seamlessly transition between piloting through space hazards, maintaining and repairing ship systems under pressure, and engaging in combat, both aboard the vessel as well as against external threats. Now, objectives can often require you to leave the ship, and this can be done in a number of different ways. You can do a spacewalk at any time, just walk out the airlock basically, and you'll find yourself in space. You do have some EVA thrusters on your suit and a rather nice grappling hook, which will allow you, once close enough, to grapple onto other objects, usually other ships, and this will reel you in really quickly. The other way of getting out the ship is landing at a space base, a space station, or landing down on the surface of a planet. Once you're outside the ship, you'll find yourself doing a whole bunch of first-person exploration, combat, scavenging, or even some rescue tasks as well. Then there's the emergencies such as fires, hull breaches, and power failures. All of these can arise at absolutely any time, and this kind of forces the crew to coordinate roles dynamically, as I mentioned previously. And along the way, players can gather resources to repair and upgrade their ship, and once mission objectives are complete, they can extract and head back to base, or decide to prepare for the next mission. So there is some structure here. You've got some short missions, some higher difficulty variants as well, and the risk-reward decision that players will face is about whether to push deeper into a sector, and that can really have some higher rewards, or whether you want to kind of get out and get back with what you've got. Now, in case you're wondering, you can play the game solo, but it gets very difficult here, and the developers have been pretty blunt about this, have been pretty candid that early access begins with a single player as being quite weak, and essentially it is a PvE game. It is a co-op game. You will need other players with you if you really want to make any decent progress. But this is something they do want to change over time. When I spoke to the developers a few months ago, they didn't go into too much details in terms of full-on specifics. They did say they've got some ideas on how they can make the game support solo play a little more. And this may be something speculating here, such as having AI companions aboard your ship and working with you. Now, elsewhere in the game, it has had a little bit of pushback from some areas of the community regarding AI-generated placeholder voices. These have been used in the early access. They will be available, I do believe, in early access as it goes further out, but these will be replaced, the developers say, later on with full-on voice acting as development continues. And this is something, personally, I can understand why some people are concerned with, but I don't actually have an issue with this, because we have seen other space games and other games out there as well in early access that either just have full-on text instead of voices, or they have those robotic generated voices, and this with the AI generated placeholder voices kind of avoids that problem. And we also know that further down the line they will be hiring actual voice actors. Now, it's worth pointing out here that there is one thing that Jump Space isn't trying to be, at least for now, and that is a PvP game. The studio's keeping the focus here firmly on cooperative play against AI across space and surface encounters, and that lines up with what the team have always said right from the start, and we've seen that right from the earliest press releases. So it seems to me that content-wise, the game here is launching with quite a bit in terms of early access. Some people may feel it's a little bit constrained. I guess I can see where they're coming from there. For example, you've got just 2 different ships, and this at the start might sound a little stingy until you look how many levers and how many different other aspects there are to each ship. For example, the power grids and the other different components. These ships are not just about flying around, they have full-on interiors and full-on areas that need to be maintained in terms of repairs as well as manned in terms of turrets. When it comes to piloting these ships, the flight model is a little bit on the arcadey side, but nowhere near as arcadey as some games. But don't go in here expecting a full-on space sim in terms of flight model like you might find in something like Elite Dangerous. That said, this flight model in this does work very, very well for what it's trying to achieve. On the ground, there's got the, some people be wondering about the gunplay. From my experience, this felt pretty good. It leans into a readable recoil and chunky sounds, and you've got quite a nice kinetic feel to all of these weapons, and there's a nice pace into the combat as well. And if you're landing on the planetary surfaces, not just in the structures you'll find in space, you'll find that there's a nice range of surfaces here to experience. We've got snow-strewn outposts and rusted industrial hulls, and it's my hope that over time we'll see a greater variety of environments as we move from early access to the full-on release version of the game at some point in the future. Another thing that's worth touching on here is the question of crossplay, because obviously this is a game that's both on PC as well as console, Xbox. They've said, the developers, that there's not going to be any crossplay in at launch. The developers have said they would like to add it in at some point in the future, but they're not going to promise anything just yet. Now, in case you're looking to the future of the game and wondering how early access is going to unfold, well, it turns out that early access is bunched into chapters. Chapter 1 is the launch chapter, and this is called the Resistant Coalition. Chapter 2 is called Atira Strikes Back, and this is planned for early part of 2026, and kind of reads like a meat on the bones update, where they'll be adding extra content, things such as endless mode, text chat, hangar vendors, melee weapons, a shield revamp, and much more. There also should be a lobby browser coming along around about that time. Chapter 3 is called The Secrets of the Telmari, and this is also set for 2026, of course. This should see some system upgrades, including a scanner revamp, voice chat, and new ground bosses as well, in addition to more sectors and mission types. And this is the interesting bit. There's also going to be a first-person pilot view, so those of you who love flying the ships from the cockpit will be able to do that as well. The fourth update is called Heart of Corruption, and this is on board. We can expect to see this before the full 1.0 release, set for much later. So there we have it. That should get you up to speed with what you need to know about Jump Space, and many of you have probably seen quite a bit on this game already. Hopefully this video gives you a bit of a reference as to what to expect. The game is launching on the 19th of September, so just 2 days away from the publication of this video. Do keep an eye out for it if you're interested in it. Otherwise, hopefully I should have another video for you on this very soon. Thanks for watching this one all the way through. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.